Okay, so Sabrina, let me make you the co-host so you could. Oh, actually, I wasn't going to post the I forgot. Okay, I wasn't going to. Let me enable the waiting room. I'll make you co-host anyways, but I forgot we weren't going to uh, uh, enable other people. But okay, anyways, so probably we won't admit anyone else unless they're already on the calendar invite. Okay, Sabrina.
Okay.
Okay, so let's get started. So we're gonna try to have a discussion about a kind of a tough topic, which is how do we safely reopen the economy? So I'm joined here by Josh Becker. He's running for a state senator. Thank you for joining.
Thank you.
Also, yeah, and also Mark and I been together on several commissions. So Mark was the former chair of the planning commission here in Palo Alto, and then I'm joined on also on the call here with a bunch of my neighbors and friends. So guys, thank you for joining. And so so we're live streaming to Facebook right now, and so let me just give some backdrop to this. So we all know about the pandemic, right? We all know about the shelter in place. We all know about the impacts that has had on the city, and so um, and then we also know about the this bit of a second wave happening of infections, and so um, the one reason why I asked Josh to join because I think he has kind of maybe an interesting perspective from the state level point of view. But wanted to have a kind of a conversation here about what do we do, right? This is kind of a tough question here. It's probably not business as usual. And Mark and I have had a lot of discussions. I also thought Mark would be great for you to share your perspective. So I'd like to have Josh, maybe you speak first a little bit about some of your thoughts. And then Mark, if you could share some of your thoughts, and then we'll let everyone kind of give their thoughts and introduce themselves as well. So Josh, why don't you go ahead and start?
Sure. Greg, thanks for having me and thanks for convening and tackling this incredibly important and incredibly difficult topics. Good to see a lot of friendly faces here and familiar faces. Um, yeah, this is just critical. I did my own Zoom cast with small businesses and they are just suffering. Um, as an entrepreneur, I mean, it is a threat to everything they've put their heart and soul into. Um, and so it's a difficult time. Obviously, we have to be protective of people's health above all else. But how do we reopen? How do we help these small businesses? We've seen in other countries where they've had clampdowns, but then they were able to open up more gradually and with more compliance of masks and things like that, which we haven't had for various reasons, which have also made things more difficult. Now, I will say there's promises of hope. I mean, I was out in Palo Alto just last night, sitting right in the middle of University Ave, having a very nice drink. And
Thank you for your business.
yeah, yeah,
Thank you for trying to help the local economy.
yeah, and at local union, 271, and my wife and I biked over. We had a very nice meal there, and that's an example of the kind of creativity that we need to have. So I commend Palo Alto on some of those measures, and I think that's what we have to help businesses. We have to help businesses be creative. San Mateo County, they opened back up. I went for a haircut, and I was really impressed. They took lots of precautions. Each stall was kept separate. They were very careful how they did the hair wash part in advance of it. I ate indoors. I just traveled to the Eastern Sierras, and it was very weird to eat indoors. But we're out near June Lake and then Mammoth and a few places there that are open. And but they had, and I was very hesitant at first, but it was very spaced out and great compliance. And overall, I was quite impressed. So I look forward to discussion. I look forward from learning what you're thinking and your experience in Palo Alto and what other people here. It's great to see Ross Mayfield on here, and I got to help Ross a little bit in this phenomenal effort he created here in Silicon Valley with Frontline Foods, and that was, I think, a prescient effort to say, great, how do we both help these struggling restaurants as well as get meals to our heroic healthcare workers who are on the front lines. And that's been a great success and has played a role in helping a certain number of restaurants, but that's still only we can only say help 30 restaurants. Great. How do we help more? So looking forward to the discussion.
Yep, thank you, Josh. So, I'll let Ross talk more about this later, but Ross was also very instrumental in terms of getting the closures of the streets and allowing the restaurants to expand. So let's before we get on to that, Mark, do you want to just say a few words about your perspective of, um, is this the new normal, right? And what does this mean? And how, what's your thoughts about how do we open up safely?
Well, thank you, Greg. So I've been talking with Greg a bit about what might be going on and the priorities for the election in November. And I think the public health crisis, which is of a historic magnitude, has caused us, as I guess Paul Krugman said, to put the economy into a self-induced coma. So the economy is in recession nationally. You have various locations in California and elsewhere in the U.S. that are having difficulties trying to reopen the economy, possibly making the public health issues worse. And it may be that the COVID-19 challenge isn't really under control until there's a vaccine. The timing for that is unknown. It could be fairly soon, or it could take quite a while. It could take up to several years. So I think to contemplate an economic recovery, one question is to do a situation analysis of what's happening, how bad is it, how does it affect businesses, how does it affect individuals. And I truly think that when we understand the magnitude of the challenge, it won't be a question of going back to how things were before. There's going to be many changes, working from home, telemedicine, remote learning, the issues that people at Palo Alto had with traffic congestion may be significantly mitigated by all of that. So traffic and parking may no longer be our top priorities. So I think we have to take this very seriously, and that's the kind of conversation I've been having with Greg.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. So I'd like to just give a chance for everyone to kind of quickly introduce themselves. I'm just going to call people on the screen. If you could just quickly introduce yourself, I mean by quick, like just less than a minute, and then just kind of your viewpoint on this. So I wanted Josh on this call as well because I thought it'd be good for him to share some of the ideas. So it doesn't have to be just for Palo Alto; it could be even state level as well. So I see Brett followed by John Mark.
Hi, my name's Brett Baird, and I'm a lifelong resident of Palo Alto. And I think we missed a couple opportunities. I'm not blaming anyone for like road repair on El Camino, which is a state road. With no traffic, it would have seemed ideal and not caused any problems with workers being outdoors separated and so forth, because it's really bad in some spots in Palo Alto, especially near where I live. Also, I applaud you closing down California Avenue to open up the restaurants there as well as University. Family business on California Avenue, and it was nice to go out to dinner there the other night. Overall, I think Palo Alto is doing a great job, and that's it.
Good point about El Camino. That's a total wreck. But okay, let's see. John Mark followed by Jeff.
Hi, my name's John Mark Augusta. I've been here in College Terrace for over 20 years, and a personal friend of, I like to think of myself as a personal friend of Greg's. I work at Microsoft. I've been working remotely since we closed the offices in March. It's quite a change in life. I have my two college-age kids and my wife here sharing internet bandwidth with me. Work on the internet has picked up. It's getting quite challenging to keep the thing up and running given the current demands. Going forward, I hope we can have an optimistic view about how these changes are going to produce the things that we can keep, that we can improve our quality of life. I'm an avid bicyclist. I think this is an opportunity to promote bicycling. It fits in so well. I think building local communities, I've got to know my neighbors and local residents better, being co-located with them over this time. I am a strong advocate of our farmers market. I think it's a very appropriate way to produce local economies and support them, provide good services, and yet maintain the social distancing and health prerogatives that we need. And I really would like to see the street closures set a precedent for better use of pedestrian and bicycle and outside business use. There's some interesting new work showing that aerosol propagation within closed rooms is perhaps one of the more serious ways that the virus is conveyed in terms of contagion, and that outdoor activities are largely doable, that we can continue with proper precautions, moving things outdoors. So let's think of some of the innovations we can have socially that we are forced to have now that maybe will improve our quality of life.
Great. Thank you, John Mark. So Jeff, followed by Ross.
Hi, I'm a 40-year resident of Palo Alto, and this crisis got me interested all the way from the beginning. So almost every day I spend an hour looking through the literature on it. Most people, I voted the way most Palo Altans do, so most people would consider me a liberal. But it's funny that this crisis hits the poor people more than the rich people. I haven't been affected that much financially, but the poor people certainly have. So you'd think that the liberals would be ganging up on this process, but I find exactly the opposite. They seem to come down on the side of saving lives, and they don't realize that there's a trade-off. You put a lot of people out of work, you aren't saving lives anymore. There are multiple professors at Stanford that also hold that viewpoint, and I'm amazed that they don't get more media coverage. I could go on and on, but I'll stop right there.
Okay, no, that's good. I think you definitely shared your perspective. Thank you, Jeff. Okay, Ross, followed by Gary.
Hi, I'm Ross Mayfield, Palo Alto native. Josh and I work together on a nonprofit organization called Frontline Foods that 100% volunteer organization, takes donations, applies them to having restaurants feed the frontline workers and other members that are disaffected by the crisis. That got me involved in the restaurant industry. Honestly, I'm doing all of this just because my wife loves downtown restaurants. But it turns out, you know, my general view is I don't think people really understand how bad the situation is. With restaurants, just as an example, most of them had to lay off 90% of their staff. 25% of the currently unemployed come from the restaurant industry. Half of restaurants are supposedly going to fail, going to close. It is these small businesses, the fabric of our downtowns, California Avenue, University Avenue, that are part of what makes makes Palo Alto a desirable place to live. And we've been carving out all of the wrong things about making this a sustainable, desirable community. I've been involved with a small volunteer group that's been pushing for doing this Open Streets program. It's been a really good success. One of the things that I did was the last Monday, surveyed 50 different businesses about what was the revenue impact that they had. And in general, across the board, whether you're on University or California Avenue or one of the side streets, your business has gone up, whether you're a restaurant or your retail. There's differences and different details that I could get into. If I would, and I apologize, I have to take another call at the end of, at the top of the hour, so I'm going to just interject a tiny bit. There kind of with just three suggestions. One is the street closures just for 1 month is too short. If we're about to get hit by PPP expiring, which is keeping some of these restaurants afloat, for example, and retailers and their employees, right? Some of them, like on California Avenue, what is it called? Tarun was able to hire back 95% of their staff. And this is exactly to the prior speaker's point, you know, it is, the restaurant industry is a great source of employment, particularly, you know, It's a leading employer of minority managers. 9 out of 10 of those managers come from their first job in that business, right? It's kind of obvious, but so number one, extend this program further. I'm not saying making it permanent. We're going to learn a lot. Greg made a really great point in the last council meeting before the break about collecting data around revenue, around parking, around traffic. My view, look, I work in tech. I've had startups based in downtown. I do collaboration software. I can tell you, we are not going to be returning back to the traditional office use pattern, not for a very long time. And it's not even about, even with a vaccine, right? So I would like people to start thinking about, horizons that are not just this next month or week, but at least through the end of the year. Second point, the Parklet program, which is the only way to provide any kind of support for restaurants to provide additional outdoor space for safe dining. Your average parklet costs like $10,000, $20,000. Other cities like Menlo Park subsidized permanent parklets for 40 grand. I don't think that we can do that with the budget situation that we have. But right now the city says, go ahead, build a parklet, and they're approving permits fast under certain kinds of designs. The problem is they can take it, you have to remove it with a 30-day notice. So for your average business that's just on the brink already, for them to make that expense with the risk of it going away in 30 days just doesn't make sense. So expand parklet permitting for 1 year. It will not impact parking or any other negative externality in any certain way, right? And just the third thing is I actually think that the city has done well, but we're not moving fast enough in this. We're not acting in the crisis mode that we actually need to do. And if we can seek these kinds of solutions, we may, through data, through experience, learn a better way of shaping our downtown communities.
Great, thank you, Ross. And actually, I think some of the things you said about how this is going to be different, I think that's something that Mark Michael has mentioned to me several times. So perhaps later, Mark, you could talk about that. Let's go on to Gary and then followed by Chris.
Hello, this is Gary Lindgren. I'm a 50-year resident. And I guess the couple of issues that I'm following are making sure that we have natural gas. I know that came up as a big issue a few weeks ago. The restaurants need natural gas for their cooking. There's no way that they can cook with electric. The other issue that that I've been following is the railroad grade separations. So I've been going to all those meetings, and I hope we can come up with some good recommendations. But as far as eating out, my wife and I have taken out a few times, but I think we're be very reluctant to go to a sit-down table at this time. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, I've heard the issue about the restaurants, like the about natural gas, that is kind of really necessary, and then also like the natural gas rates is also really important, but that's a big part of their cost. Okay, so Chris, and then I'd just like to have Josh and then maybe Mark, if you guys could respond to some of these comments from your guys' perspective. So Chris, do you want to go?
Hi, my name is Chris Rasmussen. I'm a candidate for Redwood City Council, and I'm just here to get another city's perspective on what's going on and just kind of see how you guys are doing things over there.
Okay, no problem. Well, welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, so Josh and Mark, I'll let Josh go first. Maybe give kind of perspective, maybe from a state level, because I think the unemployment in California is what, 15% or maybe higher now? It's like really, really high, right? So a lot of people have lost their jobs. A lot of people aren't able to pay the rent. A lot of businesses are on the verge of closing, right? But then we have this health crisis, right? So, and then I think a lot of people have talked about the fact that it might take a while for a vaccine. And even if there is a vaccine, maybe people will continue to work from home, right? Maybe that's the new trend, right? Or, not as frequently meeting in person. So I guess from the state point of view, how do you see things?
Well, a couple quick thoughts. I mean, one is that from the state perspective, you have much bigger issues because of the mask compliance. I mean, I found in Palo Alto last night, excellent mask compliance. I was actually quite impressed in the Eastern Sierras, where there's, June Lake or Mammoth, really excellent compliance. But I know that's not happening throughout the state. And it's one of the reasons that our country is an outlier, right? Other countries close down like we did. And then cases kept going down in our country. Unfortunately, they've gone back up. So when you've got as large and diverse state as California, you have all those issues. And unfortunately, we have those at a state level. So it's really difficult. We already had a tens of billions dollar deficit, and we're going to have one again next year. But our also health is now at risk because of the explosion in recent cases. So it's a really tough balancing act. But getting in terms of what people said here, a lot of it resonated with me. It was good to Ross. I did not know. I knew you at Frontline Foods. I did not know you were so involved in the street program, and which again I experienced last night.
Actually.
Yeah, I experienced last night, and it was terrific. It's just a little coincidentally, I didn't even think I was being on this program. We're just like, hey, let's bike down to Palo Alto, and it was great. We went to see that, and we saw the Black Lives Matters, display. John Mark, it was great to see the. I think you had some good comments about work patterns for the future and how can we envision. A couple of people commented on that, right? So let's take lemons and make lemon. How do we think about re-envisioning some of our downtowns as we re-envision work patterns? And a couple of people brought that up. It's going to be very different. I think, Greg, you were telling me someone in your building or someone that you were talking works with you was saying they're moving to Texas because they now can. And how
work from anywhere, right? So why live in an expensive area, right? Why you can live somewhere cheaper.
Yeah. But at the same time, we have to keep to long term. Gary brought up the rail crossings, and Caltrain's that is a great risk, and there's a big effort now to still get Caltrain's own independent source of funding, which it's never had. So we have to keep eye on big picture. By the way, I do disagree on natural gas. I do. It's a completely separate issue, but I have talked to people about the induction stovetops and heard really quite good reports on that from restaurants. But that's a bit of a side issue. Brett, you raised some issues about Cal Ave and some of the successes there. So I do think it's really we're doing I think what you would hope, see Ross, what you'd hope we do, which is have these kind of conversations and be creative. And if anything, as Ross said, we may need to even try to move a little bit faster to find ways to protect these small businesses and protect people's health, because as people have said, it's not going to change anytime soon.
Yeah, very, very good point, Josh. I would say that one thing I could tell also, because I'm doing so many Zoom calls, and I forget who else was saying that, but like a lot of people, like my wife is, my kids are, right, that sometimes it's really hard to have a good Zoom call, right? And so maybe there needs to be faster internet. In fact, I'm in the process of trying to upgrade my internet. So I don't know if there's anything from the state level we could do to kind of help usher that, but on the city level, I think that's certainly kind of important, especially if everyone's at home, kind of Zooming now.
It's a good point. I mean, I just say quickly, we sort of stopped talking about the digital divide, and this has shown that the digital divide is very real and with really deep repercussions on learning. Yeah.
So Mark, you've worked for large multinational, been general counsel, you've been chair of the planning commission. What's your thoughts about all this, and especially in the context of the Palo Alto lens?
Well, first, I think the comments made by everybody on the call have been very insightful, and I don't disagree with any of them. I think the issue of striking a balance between health and the economy is very, very painful because of the lethal nature of the virus. And I believe that Palo Alto often thinks of itself as special and has a tendency to think of issues in isolation. But the pandemic is global, and the dysfunction in terms of the response is certainly nationwide. It's why the US is doing literally the worst in the entire world. And this is going to make it very frustrating and difficult and protracted to bring people back to work. And I think that on an individual level, it's rational for people to want to stay healthy, to not get infected with something which could be fatal, to not contract the virus so that you would maybe infect others who have comorbidity. but to me, this suggests that we're actually dealing with a crisis. Public officials need to be in crisis management mode. I think the recent anti-science bias that you see in certain parts of our culture is unfortunate, because we're all becoming amateur, immunologists and epidemiologists. I do think that we should be prepared for this to go on for quite a long time, because of the vaccine importance to achieve true herd immunity. And until that time, even talking about transit, which was raised, I guess, by Josh, you have a situation now where it may not be safe to get in an elevator with more than one or two other people. It may be hazardous to get on Caltrain or a bus or even a shuttle. So that some of the problems that we were thinking were very high priority just a few months ago, we have to think of in an entirely different way. So I think that there's a tendency now for, and I personally have, pandemic fatigue. I wish this was all over. I wish it could go back to normal.
I think that's everyone here.
Yeah, but it's really heartening to see everybody wearing masks and being respectful of the community health. But I think there is going to be working from home, telemedicine, remote learning. It's heartbreaking to see what's happening with the schools, students not being able to go back to school in the fall, or even sports or big events. Our culture is kind of turned upside down, as on hold. So to me, this is a crisis. And if anybody is giving, business as usual, let's go back to normal, I'm not going to be very excited about that. I think that we need, urgent attention to some very complex issues.
Thank you, Mark. I think those are good comments. I think the trick is, how do we? I think everyone wants a vibrant economy, but we also want to be safe. And there's a little bit of right now there's a little bit of conflict, and the question is how to deal with it. One thing I saw that was really interesting is I saw like Hong Kong in terms of super high dense area. Who knows if the numbers are truly real, but if they are real, it's quite impressive in terms of the infections is pretty low, but they're able to open up a lot of their economy. Or I have some people in Shenzhen, which also was in China, major cities like Silicon Valley of China, and they've largely been able to get things going again without a resurgence. Now, of course, it's hard to know how much of these numbers are real or not, but I'd like to just see if Josh, do you have any thoughts about this? Is this something that can we replicate here? Can we, in our region, is that possible at all, or is it just possible in those kind of areas, or is that even real? Right? What's your thoughts on that?
Well, you're saying replicate which specifically? Just sort of
so in Hong Kong, they never really had like a strict lockdown, or Taiwan, kind of like strict lockdown, but they did a lot of what Mark said, which was everyone wore masks. They did like temperature checking, right? Because they all went through the SARS thing like 10 plus years earlier. So they had to drill down, right? They were like, pretty set on all this. And so, they do, contact tracing, they do the extensive testing, randomized testing. They did a bunch of stuff.
No, I get it. I mean, right. It's not that complicated. we've seen what you have to do, but it takes adherence by everyone. That's the thing, is it really takes every restaurant has to check, do the thermometer, everyone has to wear the masks, and you have to have contact tracing. And we really just we've unfortunately, because of the leadership and lack of leadership really at the national level, it just made all these things hard. You can't do it 3/4 way, right? If 3/4 people are complying and a quarter are not, you can still have massive spread. So I think we can, and I still am hopeful, and again, hopefully we can create models in this area, but it's difficult if you have young people running around to parties, or folks my age who just decide, they're not going to wear the masks. So we can do it, but we have to bring people together to do it, which is our challenge.
So we're a bit over time here, but I'm happy to continue the conversation. But does anyone have any suggestions, either on a local level, state level, what can we do here? I mean, we John Mark.
I want to ask, Sabrina has been entirely quiet. Now I know she
Oh,
takes
she's
on
the one
certain
showing
roles,
in my office, but
but I
she's
think it
helping
would be
to.
nice just to give her a moment here to say
Sabrina,
something.
you're welcome to.
Thank you. I have no comment at the moment. I'm just here to take notes, but thank you for including me.
Please.
Okay, but anyways, just was wondering if anyone here has any other thoughts or suggestions of what we could do, because this is a hard problem, and I don't think that anyone has a lock on ideas, right? But it's definitely we all want a vibrant economy. I don't think there's anyone that doesn't want a vibrant economy, um, but we also want a bunch of people to die either, right? So those are two things we want, and in some ways we're fortunate that we're in a time where most people have, well, not most, maybe a lot of people have high speed internet, and you can actually function, at least for some jobs, function fairly effectively, work from home. So that's, I can't imagine if this happened 20 years ago, right? Where the internet wasn't quite what it is. We couldn't do a Zoom video like this. So we're kind of fortunate on that aspect. But then I forgot, someone was talking about how some of our lowest paid people, have jobs where it's really hard for them to do this remotely, right? And so
Yeah.
what is the impact on them, right? And we have this massive unemployment now. We have this, someone said the self-induced coma, right? How do we, what do you call it? What do they do when they put the paddles in people's chest? They kickstart, right? Kickstart this, right? From the self-induced coma to something where, because I think Ross, he left the call, but he's talking about the PPP money running out, right? That's definitely true. So a lot of these people, a lot of these businesses can't continue to have all these employees when they're not making any money, right? So what happens, right? So it's a very urgent issue right now. So we'd love to see if anyone else has any ideas on what do we do here to solve this problem.
Hey, Greg. So from the health perspective, the expert commentary seems to stress a vast increase of testing, the ability to do contact tracing and isolation of people who are infected. So that may be something that could be addressed on a local level. I know that, for example, some places like New Zealand basically closed their borders, and anybody who is allowed in is quarantined for 14 days. Hawaii did the same thing, but they've just recently announced that people can travel to Hawaii if they've taken a test within 72 hours and they come up negative. So the ability to do testing of people who are asymptomatic, universal testing, contact tracing, follow-up, and isolation. The problem is that Palo Alto doesn't have natural borders. We're part of a region, which is part of our happiness is interacting with.
We are not an island, right? So it's gonna be hard to do that.
Right. But I think that until that happens on a more widespread geographic basis, statewide, hopefully the issue for Josh, I think that the public health protection is going to be an anchor that is going to keep the economy from being more robust.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think it's actually all levels of government need to work maybe in closer collaboration. I mean, there's definitely issues at the federal government. We're not here to debate about that because we don't have anyone here on the federal government level. But it's, yeah, I think the question is like, how do we, I think there has to be some sort of coordination here. I don't know if Josh, if you have any perspective on this, but if so, I'd love for you to jump in.
I'm not sure on that piece I do. But yeah, I mean, let's keep the conversation. Yeah, I'm not sure on that piece I do.
Okay, no problem. We are 12 minutes over time here, so I don't want to keep people from their Sunday, but if anyone has any other ideas or any other last words, please let me know. Otherwise, I'll like to give, Mark and Josh a few words that you guys might want to share or thoughts.
I was just going to say, that's okay.
Sure, please.
Relative to the rest of the state and the rest of the country, we've done pretty well from the start because all of the counties got together and we here in the Bay Area believe in science. And so, I mean, we made some mistakes, but we've done, being one of the largest metropolitan areas in the country, we've done pretty well as opposed to Los Angeles. My sister and my daughter live there, and they say very few people wear masks and so forth. So I think we should continue what we're doing and just pick up our game a notch.
Yeah, thank you, Brett. Okay, Josh or Mark, would you guys like to give any last? No, okay, Josh.
Well, I'll just say, yeah, support our local businesses, tip generously. Please tell all your friends if you have a good experience somewhere, share it. We've also enjoyed some of the restaurants have stuff you can take home and cook yourself, like Vino Enoteca. There's just lots out there that we can all do individually to support the businesses here through a very, very tough time. And of course, and I'm sure everyone here will, but all the people who view this subsequently, please take your masks. As we said, it's not complicated. For those who want us to reopen faster, the more compliance we have, the more people are wearing their masks and taking precautions, the faster we can get back to some semblance of what we had before. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. And so what we'll do later is we'll put in the description how to contact Josh. I think everyone knows how to contact me. And so if there's other ideas or suggestions of how do we, how can we do better? How can we try to really get things going safely? I think we're all open to ideas. So yeah, thank you so much, everyone, for taking your Sunday and chatting with us about this very important topic. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you.